a big problem. All I could see is my face, and it's like, get away. I never look in the mirror or nothing. Like literally, it's like, whoa.
I'm the
I
same
apologize.
way.
I apologize to your viewers if that's what they're looking at.
Hey, they're used to looking at me. It's painful for
Yeah,
them.
actually, you're
They're
no
well
oil painting
trained.
either. You're no
I'm
oil
not.
painting either.
I'm not. I'm not.
Well,
All right.
we're beautiful. We're beautiful one from within, me and you.
That's right. That's right. It radiates outward. You know,
That's
they
right.
sense it. They sense the beauty.
That's right.
Well, guys, this is John Curtin. John Curtin is a longtime animal liberation activist. I think, John, you've been in the movement longer than I've even been alive, because I was looking back at
Whee!
interviews. I'm looking back at interviews that you've done. It sounds to me like you started in the animal liberation movement around 1983. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah. And then I was born a year later. So you've got a lot of wisdom.
That year, 84. Do you know when people talk, and let me get straight in with a point, and I mean this deeply. The best year that I think I ever had to offer animals. Now I've got some experience and wisdom and tactical minding experience. But what I had to offer in that first year is unparalleled, because I was burning with injustice. I couldn't believe what I just found out. I was so angry. I was angry with myself for being so blind. It was like one of the best years of activism of my life, that very first full year.
Wow. So what was it? What was it that you discovered in that year?
It was a dog. Well, in 83, I'd gone out with a girlfriend. My first girlfriend was vegetarian. And my idea of going for a romantic date was to go to we didn't have McDonald's. I still have never gone into a McDonald's to this day. Well, that's not strictly true. I've gone in to do some direct action, but we won't talk about that. But there used to be a thing called a Wimpy Bar. I don't know if that was a UK chain or American, but I'd go for my burger and she'd have her tomato soup. I didn't have a clue why she was vegetarian. I didn't used to make too many jokes, but to me it was some strange thing. I went to live in Ireland. I was living in Ireland and I was lit on top of a mountain in County Kerry, and I had a dog called Pepe Le Pew, and she died in my arms. She got some like a distemper type parvo disease. It took her like 2 days to die. And that night she died in my arms. It was like a proper religious experience. I understood the vegetarianism thing. I understood that was the moment I discovered that animals are my brothers and sisters. And I shouldn't use the word even animals. Before then, I was brought up Roman Catholic. It's from an Irish family. But I stopped believing in all that when I was 9 or 10. But I still believed in this human supremacy. I still believe that human beings, we're the ones that paint the Sistine Chapel and can do crosswords and this end of evolution, this zenith of creation. And there's this chasm between us. There's this chasm between us and other animals. And that night it broke it. Animals are now my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I came back to England, especially to find the animal liberation movement. And I didn't know about factory farming. I knew there was a lot of cruelty going on. I didn't know about vivisection. And I was kind of angry with myself for being so ignorant. I shouldn't have been, because they hide it very, very well. But so I hit the ground running, and I was very lucky. By then, I think the movement was kind of beginning to peak. So I didn't have to join a movement and think of strategy. It was already up and running, and it was boiling, and it was based on direct action. Now it's based on campaigning and awareness. Then it was based on a bit, I think, if you look at the history, say, of the suffragettes, loads of direct action to begin with. And it's a bit like throwing your toys out the pram. It's kind of, people think of that as the spectacular side. It's actually pretty easy to destroy things, to burn things, to smash windows, but it gets attention. The really hard work is what you do after that. Mm-hmm. But if I can waffle on, I believed that I was part of a revolution, and I believed we could shut down at that point the meat industry by direct action, by burning down the slaughterhouses, by burning down the trucks. And when you believe that, you become powerful. I don't believe that now. I've with the bloody wisdom, maybe I've dumbed it down. And It's not as simple as that. And there's not enough of us to do it. There's too many meat trucks and not enough activists. But by believing it at that time, I was unstoppable.
Yeah, belief is just such a big part of this. But I mean, you must have some belief, still remaining in you to be continuing on and doing what you're doing, of course. So, and maybe you should set us the scene a little bit, because for people who don't know who you are, you're there at Camp Beagle right now, and you're outside of this vivisection or this dog breeder, MBR Acres, and you've been there for years.
An American company, by the way. An American company. Thank you very much, US, and every one of your
welcome.
exports. Could you take them back? Take them back. We don't want them.
We don't want them back. We've got them already. Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about the camp. And I know in just the last few days, it sounds like you got a win in court. Looks like. Tell me about
you
that.
always get distractions, and the latest distraction was dog barking.
Yeah, the best. Could you repeat it? Right?
What's?
Can we see the pups? Like, that's the main. They're the star of the show, right? So
Pepe, come here. So that's Pepe, my little baby. Here's George. These are the camp warriors, and I'll set the scene of where we are. This is the tent. This has been my home for 3.5 years.
3.5 years, yeah.
I'm going to go up the road here now. This here is the dog factory. There's over 1,000 dogs in there now. Over 1,000, probably about 1,500. In America, in North Rose, you've got 23,000 dogs in one factory. This is a small dog factory compared to what you've got in New York. But you can't hear a thing. You can hear the dogs barking here. Why can't I hear anything? Because they're in soundproof buildings. It was meant to be hidden. So here we are with our tents at the side of the road. It's been an incredible. I got sent to prison 30 years ago for raiding this place. And it's as if we're back. We're back to finish the job. Pepe, come on. Get in here.
Yeah. Back to finish the job then. Yeah, and the reason you're there is because you won a court decision just in the last few days, right?
Yeah. So Marshall's, who spent, did you know there's not a single picture of Scott Marshall available? He's the owner. There's not a single photograph available of the man. Even though he's been in global business, they do everything they can to keep off the radar. The local people never knew that this existed. Like I just showed you, soundproof buildings. You able to hear me talk because of the massive noise. I'm right next to the dog factory. You can't hear a thing. It's all about secrets. So, but they were desperate to get rid of us, and they spent £4 million. But all it ended up is that we had a big spectacular trial in the middle of London in the highest court of the land, and I was able to cross-examine witnesses. Things like they have a bleeding license. They bleed dogs to death here. I didn't believe it. Do you know, like when people always exaggerate? People will always, and it's bad enough that they torture animals, but there's always someone to say they gouge their eyes out, they chop their tongues out or something, you know. And when someone said they bleed dogs to death here, I didn't believe them, but we did a bit of research, and hey presto, we found the government license. So things like that, I was able to cross-examine directly, and MBR have never issued a statement in 3.5 years. They never say a word, but I was able to cross-examine them. Things like, I'd start off with every witness. We shout at you, don't we, when you go to work? Puppy killer, you're monsters. How does that feel? It's not nice. We're not puppy killers. After so many questions, I'd get eventually onto the terminal bleeding procedure. They've got a license here. They bleed dogs to death. I didn't believe it. Would you believe there's an actual global trade in dog's blood? So I was able to cross-examine the witnesses because they'd say, I'm not a puppy killer. Okay, let's talk about the project license for bleeding the dogs. Are you aware of that? You would never get a yes out of them, but eventually the judge had to help me get answers off them. Let's talk about the terminal bleeding procedure. Do you kill dogs in the terminal bleeding procedure? They would say no to that. Somehow they'd say we would adhere to the procedure. Do the dogs die? There's a clue. in the terminal bleeding position. Again, the judge would have to assist to extract an answer. In his summing up, he actually used that word. You had to extract answers. Eventually, I would get some sort of affirmative that they take part in the terminal bleeding procedure. I then said to one witness, he lied to me. He's a vet. I didn't know he was a vet then. He lied on oath about his profession. He said he was a line manager. But I remember with him, I said, so you're a puppy killer. You take part in the terminal bleeding procedure. Puppies die as a result of that. You're a puppy killer. He said, no, I'm not. No, I'm not. I banged on the table and I said, what do you kill then? Cats? He said, no, dogs. And I said, I tell you what, I apologize for calling you a puppy killer. If dog killer makes you feel a bit better, is that okay? You know, so yeah. So they spent £4 million, but Camp Beagle are still here. Back in the day, let me tell you something about history. When I got involved in the 1980s, because of the smoking beagles, there was something called the smoking beagles. Are you aware of that? Very famous case. A guy called Mike Huskinson had the initiative. He went to a vivisection laboratory, and they've always been built like fortresses. But this is before there was a really big animal liberation movement, and so the security wasn't so tight. He saw an open window. He got in the window and he took a couple of photographs of this row of dogs that were being forced to smoke at the ICI laboratories. Imperial tobacco. They were the smoking beagles. That caused a sensation. And after that, for about 10 years in the media, there was lots and lots of coverage of animal experiments. And the coverage was about the mad professors, about the cruelty. We, the animal liberation people, we were the animal rescuers. We were the goodies. We were the Robin Hood. But when we started to get results, when we started to shut one place down after another, then the tide turned. Then big industry woke up. Then they put the full mass media. Then we became the terrorists, the thugs. The animal experimenters became the pioneer life-saving researchers. And then what happened? We went to sleep again. It became a non-issue again. But now we're back. Where people still think it was banned in the 70s. But Camp Beagle, and we're standing on the shoulders of giants. But now we're back in the position where the awareness is increasing again. And this time, hopefully, we won't be crushed.
Yeah.
There will be a fight back from the industry. They haven't really started it yet.
Well, you know, if they're fighting back, then that means you're being effective. Because if you weren't effective, they wouldn't care. They would just sit back. Tell me about that petition that you've got going on, because I know you guys have gathered a ton of signatures.
My God. So this week, do you know, I'm a big believer in Buddhism, and with Buddhism, not as a religion, but as a psychology, as a way of life. I love the history of Buddhism. Everywhere where Buddhism went, vegetarianism went. I mean, you're talking the whole of Southeast Asia for 1,000 years after Buddha. We had a vegetarian influence. So I think Buddha was, and he wasn't a mythical figure, was the greatest animal liberation activist that ever lived. I used to give talk about that as Buddha, as the ALF guy, you know, as the animal liberation person. But you won't find anywhere in Buddhist sutras or scriptures orders you must be vegetarian. But once you read through the lines, it's all about kindness and compassion. Anyway, hard work. With Buddhism, don't be attached to the results, but you put hard work, good intention, and keep the faith that it will pay off. It won't pay off in the way that you thought it would. But this project that we've done here has taken such a lot of hard work from a lot of people. It's been very despairing. I recently had some really bad dark nights of the soul of like, how can we continue? But each year we do a petition, and it's a parliamentary petition, and it's not just a one-click thing. You have to click it, and then you get a government email, and you have to verify the email. And in this day and age, if you have to get 2 or 3 clicks, you're in trouble, because we just live in a one-click society. You know, so it takes 5 minutes of your life, which is quite a lot with the attention span of a lot of people these days. But 100,000 is an awesome amount of figure, and they have to be UK citizens. So we've done it before, and it's hard work, and you have to use all your old-fashioned methods, having a table or going to events and festivals and getting on the stage. It's hard work. So we're on February the 23rd, on this year, on the Valentine's Day. We thought that would, and that worked out a piece of magic, how it all worked out. Valentine's Day at 5 p.m. We got our 9-year-old patron. While talking about that, wait there. Here is Ron. He was our last patron, that man there. He died
it's a
a
photo.
few years
It's
ago.
a photo. Gotcha.
It's a photo. Look at this man. Can you see him? Ron Green.
Yeah, I see him.
Can you see him?
I see him, yeah.
What a man. I met him when he was 100 years old. He came to camp. Do you know he went vegan when he was 100 years old? So it was never too late, eh? He went vegan when he was 100 years old. He was our patron. And when he died, we thought, we can't ever have another patron. No one can fill his shoes. And then we met this young 9-year-old girl called Isabel. She is amazing. Do you know, like some little kids freak you out? You know, like the ones that can beat the grandmasters at chess, or they're super talented. She is the new super talented activist. She's incredible. We call her the boss, right?
Yeah.
I rang her mum up, and I never asked her to do anything because she's the boss. She tells us what to do. But on this occasion, we thought, come on, Valentine's Day. We got permission from the government. Okay, your petition can go live. And so, okay, look, it's Valentine's Day. Let's go. I rang her mum. I said, look, when she gets home from school, could she make a little video? And that's the first time I'd ever done that, because she generates all the videos herself. I took her mum aside one day. I said, do you know all these videos she makes? Like, does she have the idea? Then you help her, and you help her write the script. She goes, no, she does every bit off her own back. It's good, isn't it? And then, do you know what she said? She said, we were going to, because it's half term here, so the kids are off school. We were actually going to come and see you today to surprise you. And she doesn't come that often. And I thought, wow, the gods are all lining up. So bear with it. Valentine's Day, 5 o'clock. She laid some roses at the fence. What did the security guard come and do with a dog? He told her off. This nasty security guard. He got a 9-year-old girl putting some roses down. He's like, rah, 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 rah. Anyway, that was last Friday. Here we are now. That's February the 14th. We are now 9 days later. If you'd have said to me what would be a good amount, because remember, we have to get 100,000 in 6 months. We've got a 6-month timetable. Then we get a parliamentary debate. I'd be like, ooh. If we could get 5,000, that puts us on course. But because it's the first week, no, come on, let's think big. Let's think 6,000, 7,000, 10,000. No, don't exaggerate. Let's not put our sights too high. The figure now is something like 209,000.
Wow.
We went 100,000 within 4 days. It's like a phenomenon. I'm not a gambling man, but if you'd have bet me $1, if I'd have had to bet $1 last Friday, that we could get 100,000, say, or 50. No, well, let's go for the 100,000. If you'd have said, if you can get that by next week, I'll give you £1 million. I wouldn't have bothered wasting £1. I really wouldn't. It would have been like impossible. No, pathetic, stupid suggestion. Don't be and I'd have found it offensive because we're going to fail. I would have literally said it's impossible. And here we are today, and it's still rising. We've been on national television, and the press. 3.5 years of Camp Beagle. We've done all this ourselves. This week is the first week that we've ever had mainstream media. We've had to do every bit of this ourselves. And when I do see the pieces appearing in the mainstream media, I'm kind of happy that we've done it all ourselves, because then they have to say they balance the job. And then there's only one group. I tell journalists, look, I know what you're going to do. You're going to finish the report by MBR say, but they get this paid lobby group called Understanding Animal Research that are just a pathetic, like with ICI, the smoking beagles. They were telling people smoking tobacco is good for you. It exercises your lungs. You know, that kind of lobby group. You know, in America, all about lobby groups. Your government is run by them.
Oh yeah.
But when you see them, and A lot of people get angry now when they see what they say about MBR. No, the dogs are perfectly looked after, and they'll show you a little film made in a studio of the dogs playing with toys. So I'm kind of glad that we've done all this hard work, eking it out, and now we're starting to get mainstream media. But they will always dilute the message. But I'm glad it's out there.
What do you think is accounting for the huge interest? Do you think it's like Isabel's star power? Do you think it's like do you think it's the court case that you guys just went through? What do you think it is?
I think stars are aligning, and I asked you before, like I often feel like swearing. Fucking hard work. Fucking hard work by Camp Beagle for 3.5 years. Fucking hard work by animal rights people over the decades, not just the decades. In England and in America, you've had anti-vivisection activists for over 100 years. There's a statue in London when there was 1,000 people on the streets at the start of the 20th century. They were outraged that these professors were nailing dogs to tables in the name of science. There's a statue that was erected in London in 1906, 120 years ago. And the plaque on that statue reads, "Men and women of England, how long shall these things be?" Here we are. And that was when globally the amount of animals being tortured in the name of science was at what wasn't in the hundreds. Now it's in the millions. But I've got an answer to that, and I don't want to lay false claims. 2025, I feel like big things are starting to happen, and it'll be like an avalanche. Do you know that term snowflake can be used as it can be used a bit of an insult, can't it? You're a bunch of snowflakes. What do snowflakes do when they fall? What about one snowflake after another snowflake after another snowflake? We become an avalanche, and we're starting to become that avalanche. Or drop. The damn wall is starting to break. Big cracks are happening. So it's not Isabel. It's not. We're starting to get all these influencers and people with blue dots against their name. It's not them. What about Barry Horne, who died on hunger strike? A good friend of mine. He died. Things come in cycles. Now we've got a new government here, a Labour government. They promised before they get in, but they were going to phase out animal testing. As soon as they get in, now they're starting to do the same old talk. We will produce a document at the end of the year about our strategy. We're back to like double speak. When the Labour Party got in last time, a guy called Tony Blair, who you've heard of, who linked up with George Bush to do all the madness in Iraq and Afghanistan. He promised, Tony Blair, the Labour Party, put a leaflet through everyone's door in this country. It was called New Labour, New Life, and they were going to have a full investigation into animal experiments. When they got in, instead they had a crackdown against animal rights. And Barry Horne died on hunger strike. And you could say to me, he died in vain because he didn't stop testing. No, it's all built up, all that pressure. So the answer is that we're on the shoulders of giants, and we've all put the hard work in, and it's starting to pay off.
Yeah, I did a conversation with Tom Harris, who had written the book about the Shack campaign, and he wrote a lot about Barry Horne, and it sounded to me like so many people were inspired by what he was doing. You may be the first person that I've talked to who actually knew him personally. I'm wondering, and you also knew Jill Phipps, I know, and I wonder if you can give me a sense of what these people were like, because I've only read about them. I've never talked to somebody who knew them.
It'd be a pleasure to. It'd be a pleasure and an honor to. And the thing I'm smiling is because they're two very different people. There's no such thing as the animal right. In tabloid media, there's the animal rights protester, which is this hateful, robotic, they're just stereotype. Two very different people. The thing I can't stop. I'll talk about Barry first because it's dying to me. Barry the bastard, I called him. When I say he's a very good friend, me and Barry never stopped arguing. And I think that's getting lost now, especially within animal rights. This podcast will go to a lot of animal rights people, and they're all aware of all the toxic arguments that go on. Because people now do it all on their phones. It's all about this opinion, that opinion. And you can do it all from your bedroom. You can be part of the movement now and never leave your bedroom. Once upon a time, you had to get out of your bed, go to the meeting, go to the demo. Me and Barry always had massive arguments, fights. Not physical fights, but it come near it a few times. Good. I like having a stand up. Come on, this is a serious issue. When I try and argue with people these days, face to face, they're like, "Oh, John, you shouted at me." Like, come on. Like, you can do all the hate you want on your phone, but when it comes to a stand up, fuck that. What are you fucking talking about? That was me and Barry, right? Because Barry was always, I mean, this is at a time when I was doing crazy shit, like we'll talk about that if you want. Some mad things. Barry was an extremist to me. You'd have to like Barry, no, Barry, easy, Barry, um, but the reason,
Wow.
the best thing that you said, yeah, you're the one that knew him, right? When he was dying on hunger strike hospital, I got a message, and it was like a big in joke. I got a message that Barry wanted me to talk at his funeral, and that's a real honor,
Yeah.
while he's on his deathbed. But the practical joke is because me and Barry always used to have massive fights, but he knew what he was doing. And by me talking at his funeral, I couldn't start by saying, "Oh, Barry was such a lovely man, such a gentle soul. Oh, I have nothing but pleasant memories of Barry." No, Barry the bastard. But whoa, what a warrior.
Yeah.
And like I said, we'll talk about some of the crazy shit I did. Barry would like Barry easy, but it's good. You always need someone. So even within hardcore animal rights, you're gonna get someone who shocks them, who like no, 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 we're not doing that. So
Yeah,
that was
yeah, yeah.
Barry, like real driven working class guy. I remember Barry. We When I come out of prison, I set up a small animal rights group in Northampton, and Barry's wife had come along. And the next meeting, Barry came along, and he was like, you could tell he was like, he's all right. This guy. He was like a trade unionist, Labour Party, sort of left wing, socialisty kind of, just like a really guy who, like, say if the racist, the National Front, the Ku Klux Klan in your term, if they were in town, Barry's going to be at the front, like fuck off. That kind of guy, no, a football fan. Like he's buried not in an animal rights t-shirt, he's buried in Northampton Town Football Club t-shirt. A
Mm,
down to earth bin man. He was a bin man, a
mm.
dustbin man with no airs and graces. Um, but he was solid. And he fitted in perfectly. When Barry walked in that room, I thought, yeah, let's do business.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
What can you tell me what were
so that's
the
Barry. Any questions about Barry?
well, I'm just curious. You said that you guys fought all the time. I wonder was it just about all kinds of different things, or did you guys have like some real like common like disagreements that came up all the time?
I, even then, would always have a spin kind of on the public perception. That would hold me back a bit, but Barry didn't. But this is at a time we're burning slaughterhouses, and I'll talk about it, some other mad stuff. But some of the stuff I did, I always had the public in mind. Barry didn't. Fuck them. It's not. It's got
Mm,
nothing to do with them. It's between us and the animal abusers. I don't give a shit what this looks like. They understand. Most people, I'd be like the far out, way out extremists. But to Barry, I was the liberal, moderate. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah, yeah. You were the snowflake, I guess, right?
Like when Barry, what he got caught for was burning down whole shopping centres.
Oh,
He
geez.
wasn't going
Yeah.
for one shop. He'd take the whole shopping centre out. Whereas I'd go, no, Barry, just do the one shop. Nah, nah, nah. Like, and Barry actually, when he
Very
got
Memphis.
caught, what he got caught for, he eventually went off on his own. And he's the only one I've ever known properly do it. Barry decided to do that eventually because he was maybe
Mm.
sick of getting held back by people like me. No, Barry, you can't do that.
How long was he doing that for? Like when he was like basically doing things off on his own, being a loner?
Only the last about 2 years, about the
Mm.
last, but eventually the police got onto him. They did a lot of surveillance, and they caught him.
Yeah.
He got 18 years. I was in court. when he got sentenced, and it was unbelievable. Even though it was for a lot of it was for damage. It was for millions of pounds of damage. And I remember being in court, and I remember the prosecution standing up, and Barry was charged with endangering life. And I remember the prosecution saying, "We accept that he didn't intend to endanger life," because he didn't. You know, it was damage again. It was obviously it's dangerous setting fire to a bloody shopping centre, but you know, you do it in the middle of the night. You're not targeting. The idea isn't to hurt people. And I remember the lead up to his sentencing, and the prosecution were accepting that. And we were accepting Barry to get hammered, which at that point, because they were increasing the sentences, was like, shit, he's going to get 10 years. And they gave him 18 years. And do you know what Barry did when they gave him 18 years? He was like, fist in the air. Whoa. You know, it was like,
Wow.
go on, Barry, you know? And that's why when he got to prison, he didn't stop fighting. And that's when he did his series of hunger strikes. That was horrible. It was horrible. It's a horrible time. And because the weird paradox is none of us wanted Barry to die. You know what I mean? But we had to support him. We had a little committee, and he actually did 3 hunger strikes. And it was interesting to see how the government would react. They'd panic as he was getting, say, into 30 days, because you've probably heard of people doing hunger strikes. But I don't like it when I hear people do hunger strikes, and it's over the weekend, or it's for a week. Now, hunger strike, they use it in Irish history. They use it in Indian rebellion. They use it in the Kurds. It's used all over the world as a really powerful tool, because it's one of the most violent things you can do to yourself. It's very hard. And you don't get fascist or racist or anything going on hunger strike. You know, it's normally something, there must be some burning injustice behind it. And we had a little committee to support Barry while he was on hunger strike. And it was interesting to see the government would start panicking. Say when he got to 30 days, you can do a fast for 10 days. It's healthy for you. You can do 20 days. Some people would say 30 days. You know, people go on spiritual retreats and don't eat food for 30 days. The body can cope with that. It's when you go beyond 30 days. So eventually the government would start wanting to see our committee, and they'd call us in, and they'd start doing this negotiation. And we'd go to see Barry in prison, and Barry would call off the hunger strike because it looks promising. But then once it was obvious they were just playing games, Barry would go back on hunger strike. And his last hunger strike, man, was 68 days. And do you know what they did? Do you know, I got a message that the Barry wanted me to talk at his funeral. That's when he was dying. It was all over the news. The animal rights movement we were ready to go mental. And I've experienced it. We'll talk about Jill in a minute. And I knew Mike Hill as well, who was killed. Mike Hill's another friend of mine who got killed. And it's like as if, look at Pepe, look, and she's beautiful. You're beautiful.
Oh, Pepe.
Look at her.
Pepe's like, Pepe wants to be part of the podcast.
Do you want to look at her while I talk rather than listen to Mike?
Maybe we can. I've got my little pup here too.
Barry, listen to this, right? Barry's dying. His family are with him, and after 30 days, they take him to hospital because he's dying. And then the prison officers would have to be at the door, but he's in charge. The doctors are in charge at the hospital. Kind of rules change, and the doctors would allow the family to be with him and close friends. On day 68, so they moved to the hospital on day 30. Now Barry was due to die, and you imagine it. He's got his wife and his kids, best friends. But Barry told us, because we knew what happens in a hunger strike. This is really sad. This is horrible. The first thing that gets attacked is the brain, because the brain is a big lump of fat. It's a big, massive. It's a few kilos of fat. It takes a load of energy to run our brains. What the fuck do we do with it? Paint a Sistine Chapel, do crosswords, and kill loads of animals and destroy the planet. Well done, human beings, with this massive brain. Talk about a waste. Anyway, there's this big brain. When you're on a hunger strike, the brain looks to like body storage. And you start to go mad. And Barry always pleaded with people, remind me, I'm going to lose my mind maybe, but I need you to remind me what I'm doing. Horrible, horrible. But do you know what the government did on day 68? He's just about to die. They moved him back to the hospital So he's surrounded by family who kind of, Barry's delirious by now. But so he wakes up that next morning, or the next thing you know, he's in hospital with no family, no friends, no doctors, prison officers who offer him food. Barry's like hallucinating by now. And he ate the food because he didn't even hardly know his name by then. It's a painful thing to talk about, actually. And that broke the hunger strike, and then Barry died sometime afterwards. And it didn't get the impact that Barry wanted, because it was a very successful government move. Take him out the hospital, isolate him, break his hunger strike, and it worked. And it didn't.
Wow.
I think on one level, Barry's hunger strike was to the Labour government. Barry was a Labour man, he was a socialist, but he didn't trust the politicians. I don't think his message was to the government. It was to us. It was to me and you. It was to animal rights people. Barry was a warrior, and he was sending a message to us, like, by all means necessary, you know, and that sacrifice is involved. And we were ready. We were primed to explode at that point. But the way the government did it, Barry died way after that. And he never recovered. Very sad.
You had mentioned that some people would think like maybe Barry died in vain, but it was very clear that at the time that people were absolutely inspired by what he was doing. And now here he is, and it's all these many decades later, and we're still speaking his name. And that's why I'm glad that
Here's Barry,
we have people like you able to.
Here's Barry.
Yeah, let's.
He ain't forgotten. He's in my
Definitely
heart.
not. Definitely not.
Ron. Here's Ron, our patron. Look at him, 102. And there's Barry. So no, Barry didn't die in vain.
Definitely not. And he's still inspiring you to this day, I'm sure. I'm sure he's still a very big source of inspiration for you.
If you ever look back, right, there's one picture, and it appeared in all the papers, and it's Barry's funeral. And the strange thing is, we're all smiling. We've all got massive grin from here to here. It's a bizarre photograph. We're carrying the coffin, and what it was, he wanted to be carried through Northampton because he loved Northampton, town, and he loved his local football team. They were crap team, and they never won anything, but he loved them. So Barry had one of these green burials, you know, and he really nice. And the coffin was like made of paper mache, beautiful, purple thing with all Celtic designs on it. But it was made of paper mache, and we had these bamboo poles, and we carried it on our shoulders, and we took it in turns to carry it because it was a great honour to carry our brother Barry. But it was pouring rain, and the paper mache started to get soggy, and the lid of the paper mache, and it was like quite obvious, unless we hurry up, any minute now, Barry, it's all going to collapse, and Barry's dead body is going to be. But Barry was had a very, very dark sense of humor. He was into like heavy metal and Black Sabbath, and I still got a bad sense of humor to this day. I'm really worried about what's happened to jokes and humor. You know, with all political correctness, I'm a politically correct person and all that, but for fuck's sake, jokes are jokes, you know. But we had a dark sense of humor, and we were loving it because we know Barry would enjoy that moment, you know, because it's meant to be all solemn. And there's us thinking, shit, man, this fucking paper mache is going to Barry. But we knew he'd like it. We knew he'd enjoy it. After Barry died, you had something called the Consort Beagle campaign. That got shut down. The whole shack thing happened, the whole Huntingdon thing after Barry's hunger strike. So Barry's immediate death didn't cause the spike that it would have, but it really helped create a whole new wave of action.
Yeah. And a whole new wave of activists that I'm sure even to this day are still doing activism, and in part were inspired by Barry. Yeah, tell me also about Jill too.
Jill was one of my best friends. She was the first animal liberation person that I ever became friends with. The first meeting I ever went to, I met Jill. Don't worry about me. Don't worry about me crying. Oh, John, you okay? I'm okay. I met Jill, her sister, and her mother, Nancy Phipps. And Jill's one of the first people I ever did direct action with. really beautiful friend, beautiful woman. You know, if you ever see pictures of Jill, I made a film about Jill 10 years after she died. And now in the plastic age of beauty and Jill was beautiful, like a beautiful smile. And I made that film because I wanted people to see Jill smile. Fuck your stereotypes of this grumpy animal rights person. Look at this beauty. She shines beauty. Again, Jill was just like Barry, just like me. Come from like, you know, sort of working class, poor working class people. Uh, Jill was one of my best mates. I've got Jill's diaries, you know, which are incredible, incredible. What do I say about Jill? But do you know the term heroes? Barry was
Mm-hmm.
a hero. Oh, John, you're such a hero. Oh, Jill, no, we're not heroes. You know what I mean? I didn't used to clap Barry. I didn't used to clap Jill. Jill, I did. You say Jill, you're. I didn't say to Barry, you're amazing. But I would have said to Jill, Jill, you're amazing sometimes. But
Mm-hmm.
not every day. I didn't because we were part of a generation that now I think direct actions become some like I'm really offended by it. It's become like a fantasy that's not it's become more of an image. We're becoming
Mm-hmm.
dumb, we're becoming zombified. Then we were doing it. Then it was an absolute direct action, illegal direct action. The whole balaclava thing was an integral part of the whole animal rights movement. No matter what your campaign was, even the so-called respectable organisations fully got behind direct action. There wouldn't be big animal rights societies like PETA in your country, and without the direct action, because that's what got people going, and then you can start educating people. But this thing about heroes, Jill and Barry would laugh their heads off. I get killed a hero all the time, and I don't bother saying no. I'm not. I'm a knobhead. Just like you know, if that's what you want to. But it's actually really disempowering. It's really disempowering. I'm an old punk. No gods. You know, like no kings, no gods, no leaders. And the concept of Jill being a hero is kind of pathetic. The kind of
Mm-hmm.
Barry went that extra mile. Okay, he died on hunger strike. That's unheard of. But Jill went to she raided laboratories with me, but we didn't say to each other afterwards, "Oh my God." Now it's become something like as if you have to be trained by some SAS crack military, like in America, like the Red Berets or something, you know. No, we're just normal people doing what not breaking into laboratories was a normal thing for us. It wasn't something we need special training. We just had the bottle and we had people around us to support us. Now it's getting marginalized and it's becoming like some stale. I don't like it, you know, like it's too
Mm-hmm.
romantic now and it's become something distant. It's become something that heroes do. And I don't like that. So, Jill, wow. But let's talk about Jill's, how she died, really. Because Jill eventually had a son. And when she had a son, she had to realize I've got to make a choice here that I can't really carry on with doing as much as I could because I'm going to go to prison and I can't go to prison because of my son. So, I'd be involved in loads of mad shit and I go and see Jill and we'd have a spliff. Am I allowed to say that on here? A spliff is a porro. We're like, little, she was my mate. And I'd tell her about the mad things I was doing and she'd be like, oh, I wish I could. But she decided not to as a back away as a mother. And that's not to say that mothers, but Jill decided, no, I'm not going to risk losing my son. I can't go to prison. But then we had this guy come into Coventry, a guy called Christopher Barrett Jolly, through loads of direct action. Do you know live exports where they export live animals to
Yeah.
other countries?
Mm-hmm.
We had that here. One of the early victories of the animal liberation movement was to ban the veal crate. You still have it in America. Uh, for those who don't know what the veal crate is, with the dairy industry, they always take the calves away. Industrial dairy, modern dairy system. With the veal crate, they'll get the calf, and what they want is this pink, anemic meat, and they put them in these crates. They put them in either wood or plastic crates. If they put them in metal crates, they would lick the metal because they want them devoid of iron. It's very sick, so the meat stays pink. And they
Oh
don't
yeah.
want them to move. They don't want them to develop their muscles, so the meat stays tender. Disgusting. This business, we shut down the ports where they put the calves onto boats and take them to Holland and Greece and all over Europe. So this businessman, he saw a business opening. Christopher Barrett Jolly. I spit on the ground when I say his name, the bastard. We did our research, and what he wanted to do, he wanted to now start using planes to fly from Coventry Airport to Schiphol Airport in Holland. We did our research, and we found out he's involved in drugs dealing and arms dealing in Africa. You know, these like dodgy mercenaries. He was the pilot for the airplanes, and the council didn't really want to have anything to do with it, and they stopped him. So what he did, he went to the same court as I was at the other day, the High Court, and he managed to force the council to give him a license. And the thing I wanted to say was, Jill, Luca's son was about 8 years old. But when this landed on her doorstep, she had to get stuck in again. Her and her mom and the local group. So she got stuck in, and she and you end up spending all day there, all night there, and that was taking its toll on her physical health. And the police used to have this massive police escort every time the lorries would come. There'd be lots of police there, and we're saying to the police and the local community, the local vicar, because they'd only just moved in, was saying, no, he's a respectable businessman. We're not. He's a crook. The High Court forced the council to give him back his license, and it began again. And shortly, days after it began, Jill did what she did every day. She went in front of the lorries like this. She waved like this, stop. That would force the lorry to slow down. And then demonstrators would, maybe lock onto it. The top policeman, there was a brand new policeman that day. He was just fresh off some public order course. The driver, but I don't believe what the driver said in the inquest. This is what the driver said, but take it with a pinch of salt. But maybe it kind of makes sense. He told the driver, don't stop. We'll take care of it. And he had his plan. And he explained it. They were going to have plan A, plan B. They were going to have a cordon. All the demonstrators were going to be behind the cordon now. So the van will be able to drive in. And it's like, hello, copper. This is what they tell you on the fucking course. There's people like me and Jill around who, when they see the police line appearing, we see it and we hide. Do you know what I mean? And that's what Jill did. When the police cordon came, hid. So when the lorry came, she was able to do what she did every day. And we're talking like 10 meters in front of the truck, not jumping out in front of it. That at the inquest, we were able to prove that as he approached Jill, he sped up the vehicle. The vehicle accelerated towards Jill, and he knocked her straight over, and she was killed. And do you know what happened? The headlines in the paper read, "Animal rights,
martyr,
martyr." She lay in front of the ground. 3 policemen all made the same statement of exactly what side she lay down. She lay down in front of the lorry, and the lorry ran her over. What they didn't know at this time is that there was a camera. Yes, in the 80s, or that was the 90s. There were cameras in the 90s, folks. People think they've just been invented. There was one security camera, and it caught the incident, just the edge of the incident. And it showed Jill doing this. As the lorry approached it, it shows her putting her hand, and then horrible, But yet 3 policemen, all independently, they swear, I write down exactly the same statement. And I know those coppers did see Jill die, and traumatic things. We can talk about that. I've seen many traumatic things. Remind me to talk about some traumatic things after this. You can get things wrong. You can get things wrong. Like say, if you ever hear someone's been wrongly convicted and they made a weird statement at the time, that can happen in traumatic times. I've studied that. So these policemen can be forgiven for getting some details wrong, but not when all 3 of them give exactly the same account. That stinks. It stinks. Yeah. And there's a twist. And what happened after Jill was killed? I'm in a camp now. I'm in a tent. What did we do after Jill was killed? We set up a camp, and we thought, fuck you. We're staying here now. And we had a little war, and it took us 3 months to shut him down. But pay attention to this. 5 years after Jill was killed, Mr. Christopher Barrett Jolly was arrested at another airport. He was arrested for importing 220 kilos of cocaine. So at Coventry Airport, when he was flying calves out, getting a police escort, where were those planes going to? They were going to Schiphol Airport, which is in Holland, the Netherlands. It's the main hub of drug transportation, one of the main hubs of world drug smuggling. He was getting a police escort into that airport, and he was getting a police escort on the other side. Do you imagine the other drug smugglers looking what he was doing, thinking, hey, man, I like your style. Doesn't that stink? Doesn't that absolutely stink?
It does, yeah. It does.
So there's Jill. So I've got nothing but the most beautiful memories of Jill. And the good thing is she's forever young. She's forever beautiful. I'm getting on now, you know. I'm embracing mortality, you know. But Jill, the good die young. She's forever young. And that, and if you've got any more questions, we'll move on to Mike Hill. I've got another twist about Mike Hill. Mike Hill, I didn't know him that well, but we'd met a few times. And like Barry, I fucking loved him, you know. Young 18-year-old lad. By then, I was like, I'm like in my late 20s, and he's a young kid. So I can relate to him. I'm seeing the young punk. And he was a young punky anarchist. I loved him. The last time I seen him, he gave me a big carrier bag full of money that he'd collected, because I'd been arrested, you know, like strange for raiding this place. We'd raided this place and we'd taken 82 dogs out and 26 rabbits. Most people would think that's a great thing. Do you know what the police did? They put 6 police forces onto it, more police than you would ever have, like in the murder inquiry. They got forensic. They managed to prove that the van I used, they found a piece of grain, and on that grain there was a fungus, a very rare fungus. They matched that with a fungus in this nearby field, and they said it was 1,000,000 to 1 that van could have got the fungus other than that field. Incredible load of policing for what? For liberating some dogs. Anyway, Mike, we had a defense fund, and Mike gave me a big bag of money. I met him again at a beagle demo, because beagles is a recurring theme within the animal liberation history, maybe one of the iconic images. And I think that's a good thing. I embrace that. I know we need to, like, I understand it, because dogs, we've got a close bond to dogs. It's kind of unique. It is unique. Some purist animal liberation philosopher theorist could tell me I'm being speciesist. I hate that word. I've never used it. I can't even fucking say it. Species. I hate it. What's wrong with compassion and kindness? Anyway, yeah, I'm a devout speciesist. But there we were. We shut that place down. Perrycroft Kennels. That got shut down after a load of dogs died on the ferry. Do you know how them dogs died on the ferry? Because the company didn't want the other passengers to know. They blocked up the air vents on the ferry, and the dogs died on the ferry. There was a big scandal. I was at that demo, and Mike, and it's connected to here, he gave me that money that he'd collected. And I'll let you into a trade secret. That money was for our defense fund, because you know when you get arrested, you want a defense fund for legal fees. Not 1 penny of that ever went onto legal fees. Did it? Fuck. It got recycled back into direct action. And none of we had a few people on trial, and none of those people ever said, "Hey, John, where's the defense fund?" They all knew where the money was going, straight back into ALF actions, and Mike knew that. What happened to Mike Hill? He was killed by a mad. There's all these links. Jill. Right, let's get on to Mike's death. He was sabbing one day. It was a freezing cold day. I remember that day I skidded out of control in a motor vehicle that day. We were going to go to a benefit gig in Manchester that Mike was due to go to that day. That had a Beagle connection. That was to raise money for another Beagle raid on the Boots laboratory. We shut that place down as well. I should have met Mike that night. He was out hunt sabbing. They blocked this vehicle in. It was a hare hunt. They sat in the back. Mike sat on the back of the vehicle, but this drunken huntsman got in the vehicle and he sped off. And it had a trailer on the back, and the hounds were in the back. and he went for 6 miles. Mike couldn't get off the vehicle. He was getting faster and faster through his country roads. Mike tried to jump off the vehicle, and the trailer behind him went over Mike. Any normal person, because they ain't normal. There was 2 other people on the back. He looked back, the driver, there was 2 of them, and he smiled and he carried on driving. What Mike's 2 friends had to do, they had to smash the window of the pickup truck for him to smash. And even then, the hunters wanted to fight them. They ran back, but they were a mile away from Mike. By the time they got to Mike, they managed to go to a nearby house and ring an ambulance, and Mike was dead on arrival at hospital. A few days after that, we went to that man's house because he never even got arrested. He was drunk and he never got breathalyzed and he never got arrested. And we knew it was going to be a cover up, a tragic accident. That day, the police called it a tragic accident. Uh, but we went to his house and we smashed it up. That on the Monday, and there was lots of television cameras. There was lots of police there, but we were a mob and we were unstoppable. It was not very tactical. I ended up going to a prison for a year for that, but I didn't give a shit. I was full of rage. And it's good when you're full of rage. You're unstoppable. Not you can do some stupid. You wouldn't. I wish I'd have covered up, but I was too angry or something. But anyway, I got arrested 3 times that day. But there's a Jill Phipps connection actually. And Jill wrote an article about it. It was called British Justice. On the film, there's lots of people, crusty punks with dreadlocks. Jill had dreadlocks. So what did the police do? They look at the video. Hey, look, there's a woman with dreadlocks. They went to Coventry to arrest Jill. Jill was still in that. I said she wasn't doing direct action at that point. Jill was at home in Coventry. She picked her son up from school that day, but because she had dreadlocks, that's why the police went to arrest her and took her 100 miles away. She wrote an article, and that article started with Mike Hill. She said, I didn't know him, but he's been killed. And the connection was that she got arrested, and she hadn't, even though she had nothing to do with it. And she wrote, Mike was killed by a deranged huntsman. We've all had to face that, and it was only a matter of time before this happened. And that was 5 years before she got killed by a deranged, mad animal abuser. So all these things, there's a kind of like, there's a thread, isn't there?
Yeah, weird connection. Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I'm really curious about how you talked about how the idea of like putting people like Jill and Barry and Mike up on like a pedestal as like heroes is like disempowering.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting because
Very.
yeah. And do you mean it's like sort of it makes what they did seem inaccessible to the everyday people? And follow-up question to that is, why do you think it is today that I guess people like from my generation would see these actions as such heroism rather than just what you did, like you described in your era, like when you guys started out back in the 80s, when you started, it was just what people were doing. And why have we lost that?
Yeah. It was normalized, and it wasn't radical. It wasn't within the movement, and society understood. I think we're becoming zombified as each generation goes by. We're becoming more zombified. Like in England at that time, you had things like the miners' strike, the poll tax riot, the Brixton riots. You'd have a bit of insurrection going on the street, and it was kind of seen as healthy. It's a healthy way of letting off your steam. So maybe at the beginning of a movement back then, you had lots of liberation struggles, and we definitely adopted it back then. And people think of they use that term, the Animal Liberation Front, as if it's an organization. Me and Jill and Mike and Barry were the Animal Liberation Front, but there were no offices, there was no organization. We just were. We were the same animal rights people doing some dog rescue, doing a stall, but at night time we became the Animal Liberation Front. We weren't some clandestine secret organization. And do you know what the Animal Liberation Front is? I can give very, 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 and I'm giving some trade secrets here but the CIA and the FBI and the police, they know this. I've read it myself in their reports, but they would try and hype it in the media. All the Animal Liberation Front always ever has been. Now it's become like a Hollywood movie. No. groups of friends who trust each other. As simple as that. Who do some campaigning together. You go to the meetings and then maybe you listen to what some other people say. You go down the pub and you can work out, oh, they're a bit spicy. You end up saying, do you fancy going out? Like I remember that first meeting, Jill thought I maybe be undercover because I arrived at the first meeting and I was already primed to go. I didn't need to get frustrated with demonstrating. I was like, come on, let's go. And I was already smashing butcher's shop windows myself on my own. And she was a bit worried about me because I seemed a bit too keen. But that's what the Animal Liberation Front was. Me and Jill and friends. So don't glamorize it. You know, it's just a group of bloody friends who trust each other who decide to go out at night. Why have we become this? Why is it degenerated into now an image? I think because society has degenerated a bit. Of course, one of the excuses that people use, and I do see it as a bit of an excuse, because people say there's too much security, and that's true. But of course, one of the things that happened, like I said, with tonight, if you break into a television warehouse, you're probably going to get some cops on the case. But when you do an animal liberation action, you get the fucking murder detectives. They throw everything at it. So now, with all surveillance, and back in the day, once you raided a laboratory, once you were like round the corner, you kind of got away with it. Now they can track you down. But this thing that I'm carrying in my hand, the mobile phone, that's how people get caught. We carry our own trackers around now with us. And before the people that do the raid, everyone, I hate it when people text me like something that's illegal. I tell them off. I tell them, get the fuck off that. If you want to talk about it, at least do it over the phone. Stop fucking texting me because that will be etched in. And you think you can delete it and never get deleted. So I think we're being dumbed down, and movements move. There's a clue in the title, the Animal Liberation Movement. So I think it's a sad aspect, but it happened within the suffragettes that you start off with a load of direct action. And all I know is that there's far, far less. And I'm not into making fancy speeches. Come on, everyone. All I know here, the only people that are in here, I've had thousands and thousands of conversations about, come on, let's get the dogs out. You won't see on Camp Beagle big sexy posters of like balaclavas. On next Saturday, we're going to get the dogs out. If you do that, it's not going to happen. You're broadcasting it to the world. Loads of cops are going to arrive. It might seem sexy. It might get you a load of likes. A load of people might turn up on the day with balaclavas, but it's not going to happen. Let's deal with some fucking reality here. The only people that have walked the talk here, we've got a group called Animal Rising. Have you heard of them?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're the new kids on the block. I don't want to say anything. I kind of stereotype, but it's bad. I don't mean it's an insult. Young middle-class kiddies. And they don't wear balaclavas. But they came here and they walked the talk. They raided here twice. They did a brilliant job. They came and took 5. And then the next time they took 20. The police tragically got 2 back. Do you know Rose? I think you've got hopefully connected. A really good woman called Rose. Yeah. She's one of the spokespeople. Ben and Dan. But they will go down to the police station the next morning. Quite extraordinary. Back in the day, we're like, what are you doing? They go down to the police station the next morning and say, the first time they did it, the police couldn't believe it. And the police didn't charge them. The police were like, oh, it cannot compute. They're like, hello, we broke in last night. We took 5 dogs. They never did get charged. Now, the second lot, after 1 year, the police have decided because of politics to charge them. So things have changed. And I don't want to, it's too painful for me. And I'm sick of talking about, why don't you break in? Stop it. You know, like if you're going to do it, you do it with your friends. Stop pointing your finger at other people. I don't think about breaking in here. Camp Beagle, in order to survive, we have to be legal. We have to jump through. I told the judge, I said it last week, if I could get 10,000 people with pitchforks to break in it, I'd do it tomorrow. But I'm not doing it because it's not realistic and it's not happening. And if you do it, you'll have to put it all over Facebook. Back in the day, we had a way of contacting. Do you know things like we have big demonstrations like I told you I needed 2 to 3 hours. It's a good job. I couldn't believe it when you
Hmm.
said 2 to 3 hours because normally when I do an interview, they say you've got 2 minutes, and I'm like, fucking hell.
Yeah,
I'm
that
only
ain't gonna
just
happen
blasted
with you.
warming up. Back in the day, we had ways and means, and I think we're becoming stupid. Like because of these phones, we're becoming zombies, man. We don't realize it. Back in the day, there's something called World Day for Laboratory Animals every year, April the 24th, and you have it on the nearest Saturday. I don't know if you have it over there. You used to. That to me was one big conspiracy. It would look like a demonstration with placards, but you was a great opportunity to meet people all over the country, and you'd give each other sets of dates. Right, this
Mm,
date we're going to break butchers' windows. This date we're going to burn meat trucks. And you could say to someone on April the 26th, right, next October the 4th, meet me outside the such and such a church or such and such a car park. You didn't have to text them the day before. You remembered it. October the 4th, outside the St. Mary's Church. You remembered it. You had a brain. And so we used
mm,
to have these ways of networking. Now those we don't do things face to face anymore. We all contact each other over the phone. I think there's many reasons, but to me, I'm bored of the animal liberation balaclava militants. They underwhelm me and they bore me because there's a lot of image and spectacle in it and not enough action. So I'm more interested in doing what's happening at the time. And
mm.
I hear a lot of people come and speak to me about breaking in, but I'm bored of it. And now I'm quite rude to those people. I start yawning or something. I shouldn't do, but I'm like, I'm not expecting it to turn into anything.
Hmm.
Does that
Yeah.
give an answer?
Yeah, so you're just seeing like basically people doing a lot of talk and not a lot of action, and yeah, kind of just focusing too much on the sort of imagery of it, which I think is
Yeah, it's
interesting
so
because I
tragic.
do.
I used
Yeah.
to fucking wear a balaclava because I had to. Now people
Right.
wear
Right.
balaclavas as a fashion statement.
Right. 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 Right.
I've seen
Yeah.
people here. They come in broad daylight. They wear balaclavas and then they'll take them off and have a cup of tea in
Hmm.
front of the
Hmm.
camera. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you walking up down here with a balaclava on? I remember only once I bought a balaclava. I remember I put it on. I was going down the side and I'm with these other people, balaclavas. And I thought, what the fuck am I doing? I took it off. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not breaking the law.
Hmm. Well, in a way, like to me, it almost seems like it's like an ode to like the people from the past that it became something that was cool to some of these people today, which on the opposite and on the flip side of that, I feel it's kind of sad that we have all these like we have all this cool imagery from the animal rights movement, the animal liberation movement that has sort of been lost to history. Or do you see it the opposite way? Because I feel like, well, I'll just give you some context. I've been vegan only for 7 years, and so I've been in the movement for 7 years. And
7 years? Is that all?
yeah, yeah, and then it took me like probably 4 or 5 years to even start learning any of the history of the animal rights movement, and I think that's quite sad. Like I feel like it's sad that we've lost some of the
Yeah.
history. Yeah,
Yeah, there's
and
definitely a bit of a warping of our history. And
mm,
again, like, do you know, at the start of this, I'm like overwhelmed by 200,000 signatures in just over a week. I
right,
remember being overwhelmed when we used to have a vegan fair back in the day, right? You'd pick the smallest little church hall because you didn't have a lot of money. You'd have it on the edge of town because it was cheap. If you did have it in the town centre, it didn't matter. The only people that would come, the only vegans there were your fucking Animal Liberation Front activists. They were the only vegans. There weren't any vegans who did it for health.
right,
As far as we're concerned, it was like an in joke. Barry was quite a nice, muscly guy, but most of the vegans we knew were like me, like skinny, emaciated motherfuckers. Like the idea of like uh, vegan for health didn't it wasn't really kicking up. You did it for moral reasons. I remember when I went vegan, I kind of did it as a sacrifice, but I remember thinking to myself, I still believe you still need milk, but I did it for like, I remember when I went vegan, I was at an animal rights protest. Jill was there actually, and there was this massive dog. It was an Irish wolfhound, and I was like, oh my God, so beautiful. And he had the most beautiful coat. I goes, what do you feed the dog on? And they said he's vegan. And I was like, what? And I felt a bit ashamed. And I had these leather shoes on, I remember. And I kept trying to hide them with all these other vegans, being a bit uncomfortable. But that's the day I went vegan, because I thought, shit, man, if a dog can do it, so can I. But I actually thought I was going to get rickets and like proper like calcium deficiency. Little did I know now. I still believe the hype of the dairy industry. Now we know that drinking milk, that's the one that depletes your calcium. But I believed at the time that I kind of took a knock for my health by going vegan. How bad is that, you know? But the only vegans there were. So then we started to get these vegan fairs, like in the early sort of 2000s, and I go to now it's in a hotel in the middle of town, and I'd get claustrophobic, you know, with all these like, I'd be like, oh, and it's a bit of a like, wow. But now I think, can I speak? I will speak honestly. Like, once upon a time, if I met someone and they said they're a vegan, I'm going to love and I'm going to give them a big hug, and they're instantly in my family. Let me say it, and I don't give it. I want to speak how I want to speak. I've met too many wankers these days who are vegans. They've got the vegan t-shirt, but they're full of hate. All they ever do is point their finger at other people. They start every conversation, I'm vegan. Are you vegan? Have you got leather shoes on? And I'm like, oh my God, shut your mouth. Like, we've got a vegan kitchen here. Do you know, I'm sacrificing myself in a minute. We were actually meant to have a celebration roast dinner today, you bastard. But because of that, I'm doing this. The others are in the other room having the roast dinner. But that's a vegan kitchen. But because we're Camp Beagle, we do animal testing, I don't spend every single moment talking about our vegan kitchen. We've got a vegan kitchen. But we get ignored by all the vegan groups. Or not hardly any, no vegan groups hardly ever put our stuff up. Even like there's a town, Cambridge. It's only like 15 miles away. The Cambridge vegans have never come here as a group. I can't believe it. And I think, to me, if I can say a bit, but this is me being a bit angry, I'm an activist. I've got the t-shirt. Sometimes these days that can mean you go on the street for a Saturday afternoon. Freddie, strength. We've got interruptions. Bloody dog. I'll pass you over to Freddie. I think my voice sounds a bit like Freddie's. So apologies to all the people who've been listening.
I think Freddie got pissed off. Freddie was like, "You're calling out the vegans."
There's Emma. There's Emma, who's been at the camp. This is a classic. People are like, who's that? Emma's been at the camp for the same amount of time as me. She's been here more times than me. Sometimes I get away. Emma's here all the time, but she doesn't give a shit about being in front of a camera. People don't even know her, but she puts the work in. I get the, oh, John, you're a hero. She don't. No one even knows her, but she don't give a shit. Good.
Is she there?
Right,
can we get her on camera, or does she not want to be on camera?
Emma, come here a minute.
Emma,
will you finish?
Some recognition.
She doesn't care.
I know, she doesn't care.
People do care though. Oh my God. If I can, I'm having a run and I'm outside and I'm in, like, to me, an activist, that word, I don't even like the word. Yeah, this guy wants a word with you. Jeremy.
Hello.
Hi.
Right, hold the phone and talk to him.
Hello.
I just wanted to meet you because, because John was saying that you spent as much time at the camp, if not more time at the camp. So, I just wanted to meet you as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I don't like cameras.
Yeah.
But Emma, you don't get called a hero, do you?
No.
How many times do I get called a hero, like, every day? How many times today have I been called a hero?
I don't know. Lots.
Hundreds today because we're going through a thing. How many times have you been call her a hero, Jeremy? Make a day.
You're a hero, Emma. You're a hero. But John thinks that's terrible to say, so I shouldn't say that.
Give me back the camera. Give me back the camera. I want the camera back.
I didn't mean to undermine anybody by calling her a hero.
No.
But
so
no,
that term activist, I'm an animal rights activist.
Yeah.
I don't even like the term. To me, life is activism. Getting out of fucking bed in the morning. Being a vegan doesn't make you an activist. What you had for breakfast, I don't give a shit what you had for breakfast. I want to know that you help animals. And if you want to believe that by being vegan, you're saving chickens' lives, fucking smell the coffee. If millions of us do, billions of us do, it might begin to affect the industrial military complex. But the animal rights, do you know one big difference? Like, here's a big difference. When we talk about the Animal Liberation Front back in the day, the animal rights movement, and it'd be the same. America's different because you've got more distance. So it's a bit more difficult to network. But here, it's not the biggest country in the world. Every town had an animal rights group. But that animal rights group consisted of hunt sabs. That was their interest. Maybe people who were against anti-vivisection. But it would also include people who ran the sanctuary, the animal rescue places. Someone who like helped the pigeons, or someone who they did a project with helping the cats. They weren't vegan, maybe. We didn't ask them when they walked in the room, what did you have for breakfast? And if they said they had an egg sandwich, get out, you monster. We weren't vegan groups. We were action groups. I'll show you. Emma says, look, this is what I'm missing out on, Jeremy, you bastard. Talking to you.
Yeah, I know.
So look,
ruining your day.
Road, look at it. Can you see those pieces of artwork over there? Spray painted. Can you see them?
They're blurry.
Look, hang on. I'll go there before I show that. Look at that. Spray painted. Wonderful. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
But look, everything here is bittersweet. Look on the back of this. As he was painting this, it took him 2 days. This is a memory of the 2 vans of dogs that we witnessed being taken to their deaths on the 7th of September 2023. So we've got a bottle of champagne in the kitchen that was given to us this week, but we're not going to open it because we've got 200,000 signatures. We're not going to open it because the judge didn't get rid of us. That bottle of champagne gets opened when these gates get shut down for the last time. Oh my God. Oh my God. I'm about to show you something now. We get overwhelmed. We get no support, hardly any support, I'd say, from the animal rights movement. We get international support from animal rights groups. You're talking to me now. We get hardly any acknowledgement from animal rights groups in the UK. Honest to God, we don't. Our petition, which has got 200,000 signatures, hasn't been shared at all by, I don't think, hardly any animal rights groups. Because everyone's too busy fighting each other. But we get overwhelmed with love. I'm about to show you something. It's astonishing. But it's very symbolic of the love that we get. But we get, the vegans don't, the vegan groups, no way did they share our petition. Oh, it's about testing, it's not a vegan issue. Look what I'm going to show you now. Look at that, that's a cake. What's this? Is this
It's edible.
That's edible. We can't eat that. We can't eat a beagle.
Can't eat a beagle.
Is that vegan?
Right.
To eat a beagle. But this is Penny who makes it. She gives us, like, she comes across it the other morning. She gives us a cake, and we need things like this. We need to keep us going. We've got today. When I go back to my phone, it's going to have hundreds of messages. But we're boots on the ground. We're old-fashioned physical thing. And this is the most spectacular cake we've ever had. But Penny brings us like lemon drizzle cake, and we've always got the kettle on. Look, we've got a fully kitted out vegan kitchen. Everything has to be in cupboards because of the rats. We've got lots of, but this company, the reason we've not got loads of rats is because they poison them all, the bastards. Look, we've got a full cooker, kitchen, everything given, everything donated. Hey?
Wow.
Look, we've even got, look at our lot stuff here, look. We've even got it labelled onions, bread, cake. That's the most important.
Yeah.
We're known for
Yeah.
our cake because the kettle's always on. We're a vegan kitchen. We're amazing, I must say. We've had the kettle on for 3.5 years. We get the mad, the bad, anyone can come along. And we don't have to say, like, yeah, people don't have to say about their dietary needs. I'm a vegan, I'm not a vegan. Here's some cake. We don't. Oh my God, the beagle's blown off. The beagle's on the floor. It's, I know Freddie's going to get the cake.
Oh, God.
But that's our most important draw. And that's part of the revolution for us in cake. You know what I mean? But look at that.
Yeah.
Hey!
It's gone again. There you go.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, look, talk to Jeremy.
Oh, hi, Jeremy.
This is Penny,
Hi.
local resident.
Hiya.
Hi. Thank you for being there, Penny.
She gives us 1,000,000 times more support than all the animal rights groups in this country put together. Local lady who you just look after us, don't you, a bit?
Penny,
Well, I try. But do you know, my family has been here in this area for nearly 58 years. And I didn't know that this place existed until just over a year ago. How shocking is that? That is absolutely terrible. The thing is, it's set so far back from the road, and this is a 60-mile-an-hour road that passes the gates. So people drive by every day, and they're passed in a blink of an eye, so they don't see it.
right.
But
How did you learn about
Camp
it?
Beagle has changed all that. Camp Beagle is changing all that. You know, they've just made everybody so aware, and you know, things like this, the cake, it's just it feeds the soul and it keeps them going. And you know, that's what we want. We need people to come down to camp to see what's happening here. It's terrible. It is just terrible.
Did you learn about this place from the camp?
To cut a long story short, I had an accident, which laid me up for a little while. So I was looking at the socials, and that's how I found out through, you know, the socials that the camp was putting up and all the information. Then as soon as I was well enough, I came down to take a look to find out. And the first time that Emma took me down the side, and I heard those dogs, oh my God, it broke my heart. It absolutely broke me. And so I've been coming ever since. And I'm going to put you back to John now, because I think I've said enough.
Well, Penny, I want John to hear this. Penny, you're a hero.
I got dinner. No, I bet you look. Look at that. By the
Did you
side
hear
of
that,
the
John?
road. Look at that. No, look.
Not
full
roast potatoes.
Not roast potatoes.
Potato mash and
wow.
steamed vegetables.
Nice. John, I called Penny a hero. I wanted you to hear that.
Ah, nice. Okay, to wind me up. Trying to wind. No,
Yeah,
she is a hero. I'll go for that. She is a hero. It can be used in a nice way. That word hero come. I get it when people say it, but be careful about it. Like I've got loads of heroes. Like Jane Goodall's a hero. I've got loads of heroes myself, but there's a way of using that word that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think we overuse it. Like I hear this word. I even was joking about it with Tom. We use the word legend. Like people call me a legend. Like I have not earned that at all. Like I'm not a legend. People call, so we overuse the term. So I'm like, well, what do I say to somebody like Tom who's got all this history in the movement? And I said, listen, you're a legend. And I'm just embarrassing everybody because they're saying like, I'm not a legend. I'm just a guy, you know? And I'm sure you feel the same way. Yeah,
I
we
do.
overuse
When people
word.
tell me, my response, I say I'm actually a knobhead. Have you got that? A knobhead, a bell end.
Okay, well that'll be the title of the YouTube. Then it'll be a conversation with knobhead John Curtin. How about that?
Please bring it on.
Yeah. Well, long-term knobhead.
This is good. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this interview because I feel raw, and because of this success we're finally coming up with, I feel like I've got a few things to get off my chest or something, you
Oh,
know.
good. Yeah, yeah. Well, and by the way, like you were talking about like vegans and stuff, and it just goes to show, like, you know, vegans are just people. Like, there are vegans that I like, vegans that I don't like. I also, like, when I started doing activism, as you said, that word, you don't like that word, but I had this feeling that, yeah, everybody who I've done activism with is my family. And then, you know, we had some of the infighting and stuff, and I had to rethink that. And I'm like, okay, actually, I might have to set some boundaries. Actually, not everybody is family. While I have a certain amount of
But
respect for
I'm going
somebody.
further than that.
Yeah.
There used to be like a sort of stand-up comedians would do the stereotype of the vegan, but I think it's actually becoming true. Let me explain that, right? Within the animal liberation movement, I think there's always been a space for the finger pointy, hate-filled person. They're always going to come, but there's a difference now. Back in the day, by being part of the animal rights movement, you had to show up. You had to come to the meeting. And if all you ever did at a meeting is going, "Nyang, nyang, 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 nyang," people are going to get sick of you, you know? And they're like,
Yeah.
you're not going to be part of it. But now you can do it all from your bedroom. But let me go through the criteria, because my theory is we've got within veganism, we've got a disproportionate amount. Well, no, veganism now, because now it's across society. I'm talking about your t-shirt wearing, self-avowed, I'm an activist and I'm a vegan. I think within that world there's a disproportionate amount of wankers, and I'll tell you why. Because by doing that, if you're a hate-filled finger-pointing person anyway, by joining the vegan movement in one little go, in one little step, by changing what you have for breakfast, you're outside of society's norms. A horrible, hateful person wants that. They want to feel special. You're on a high moral pedestal. A horrible, nasty, pointy finger person wants that. You can spend your whole life, I'm not vegan. I mean, I'm vegan. Why aren't you vegan? And it's always the other people's problem. I've met some of the most unpleasant people in my life that are vegan. And these days, to be an activist, just like to be a part of it, once upon a time, like Jill, Mike, Barry, me, you had to fucking show up and do stuff. You know, you had to go to the meeting and you had to have stand-up rows with people. Now you do it all in your bedroom. And as long as you go on the streets once a month and give out leaflets for 5 minutes and then go off for a pizza after you're now an activist. And it's like, wow, you know, it's degenerated. That's what I said. But please, listen, hopefully people aren't going to watch that and think I hate all the vegan group. I don't. I love yous all. The ones that do. But be careful of this toxicity. And I've seen it. We've experienced so much toxicity at the camp. My God, I've met so many people that parachuted in and they've got all the t-shirts on. And oh my God, they're just horrible people. Vegans out there, be careful of this loudmouth vegan. The first thing they ever tell anyone, I'm a vegan. Are you not vegan? Jesus Christ. When I think of that, things coming loose, my first girlfriend, if she'd have had a go at me every single day, if she'd have like shouted ahead of me when I was eating that burger, I'd just gone vegan. I'd have gone, okay. I'd have done it for her. And then when we were split up, I'd have like, Jesus, give me a burger. You know, you shouldn't go vegan to please other people, for God's sake,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Anytime somebody says to me something like, oh yeah, well, in a relationship, I would be vegan with that person. It's kind of off-putting to me because, yeah, that's not the reason why you would be vegan, right? Like it has nothing to do with animals. It has nothing to do with minimizing
It's a dietary
harm or
choice.
anything.
Being vegan
Right.
is what you decide to have for breakfast does not dictate what sort of person you are.
Right.
You can be
Yeah.
a meat eater and be a pleasant person. I know I'll get in trouble for saying that. You can be a meat eater and be a pleasant person. Yeah, you're responsible for animal death. You're not allowed to say that. If I was to write that on a text, I bet I'll get loads of hatred for saying that. People say, how dare he say that? You can be a meat eater and be a perfectly nice, reasonable person.
Sure.
You
Well,
could
you
be a
were
vegan,
one.
you could be a meat eater, and you can help animals. If you was a meat eater, rather than all the vegans that talk about breaking in here and getting the dogs, if you're a meat eater and you broke in here tonight and rescued some dogs, fair play to you, mate. You know?
You told me to remind you. You said, remind me to talk about the traumatic things. So I'm reminding you about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So many.
Yeah.
And people worry about me because some people worry my sort of fragile mental health sometimes being here. This is a hard place. Living here with these, when I'm sleeping, even though it's soundproof buildings, you can hear the cries of the dogs. To me, walking along a street, I still can't get, you know, like I've got lots of good meat eater friends, but it still kind of gives me a bit of trauma to this day. I don't want to be sitting at a table when they're eating, though. You know what I mean? When they're going on a chicken leg, that kind of gives me trauma. If I see a chicken leg on the street, that kind of gives me trauma. But wow, man, beyond that, I've seen, by getting involved in this movement, you have to be careful with your mental health because every day I make films and I have to trawl through the torture. But some of the thing I was going to say about that is some of my crazy stories. I'll go to the more spectacular ones because, like I said, I've done some horrible stuff and seen horrible things to do with animal suffering. But I've actually, one of the things I've seen, I got arrested for murder, right?
Whoa.
And in front of my eyes, a huntsman got his head chopped off, right? I saw inside that man's brains. And that was, but people go, oh my God, John, I'll tell you this story in a minute. But I get more traumatized if I see a chicken leg on the street, I think, than that incident. Okay, it was very shocking, and you're not meant to see that happen with a human being. But I get traumatized by animal abuse still to this day, and that's never left me. I cry here a lot, and I don't want to get hardened to it. But let me tell you the story about a bloody mad huntsman getting his head chopped off. And this was in a period where I was trying to have a quiet time, right? This is me trying to like do something like, okay, John, back off a bit, be a bit less front line, and it ended up with this incident. So in this country in 2004 hunting was banned. Have you got fox hunting over there? I think they do in Canada, you know, with like with the horses and they chase the foxes.
Yeah, I think they do have it here. It's
a
not
bizarre,
huge, but yeah.
It'll be upper class people that probably do it, you know, like, oh, hello, Henry. Here it's very class based, high class, you know? And it's the entertainment of the rich people. But it's not about killing foxes, it's about chasing them for 10 miles and then killing them. It's a very protracted, it's got a long history to it, very class based. But in 2004, hunting was banned, finally. Not killing of animals banned, but this particular ritual, because it's very ritualistic. It was banned after lots and lots of decades of struggle. Oscar Wilde, he had a good quote about fox hunting. He said, the unspeakable, meaning the rich people, in full pursuit of the uneatable, meaning like, what are you doing? You know, it's just purely for pleasure. You're not even going to eat what you hunt. Anyway, that got banned in 2004. But the aristocracy, being the aristocracy, it's the only form of law that I've ever known passed that is so flagrantly broken. Like yesterday, Saturday, there would still be 20, how long's that? 21 years later, they're still doing it. And the police are like, yes, sir. Yes, Lord. No, Lord. If you like, you know, it brings the rest of the laws into disrepute. Say, like, I mentioned having a spliff before, smoking marijuana. That's still illegal in this country. Loads of people smoke marijuana. Loads of people do. And it's kind of becoming decriminalised. But if I was to arrange a spliff smoking event, the police will maybe let you get away with it once. But if you had it every Saturday in broad daylight, you're going to get arrested. The hunt, right? It's the only law I know where they can do it in broad daylight, week after week after week. The only other thing like it is like when multinational businesses do their tax fraud. They're allowed to rip off billions of pounds in broad daylight and they don't get done. If you steal £20 out from a company you're working from out the till, they'll arrest you. You can steal £1 billion through tax fraud and they'll leave you alone. The hunting is like that. So About 10 years ago, so about 10 years into the hunt ban, a friend of mine came, and she's a hunt sub, and she said, this guy's turned up and he's got a gyrocopter. Do you know what a gyrocopter is? It's like a small helicopter, like a
Yeah,
James Bond type helicopter with no canopy. It's like a go-kart with blades, and it flies. She said, he's offered to go and we can film the hunt. Now we'd use drones, but she got quite frightened, and it's very cold up there, you know, because you haven't got a canopy. But I like a challenge, so I said, okay, I'll try it. And we used to go week after week, and we used to film the hunt, and they used to hate it, and they used to complain to the police and the Civil Aviation Authority because they don't like opposition, these rich people. And then on the last meet of the year, they actually set up an ambush for us. They set up a trap, and during the day, we would have to leave the hunt to refuel, to stay up in the air. We couldn't take a full tank of petrol. That wouldn't keep you going all day. So halfway through the day, we would leave the area to refuel. And we went about 10 miles away, but they'd set up this elaborate trap for us. And when we landed, this Land Rover, like a 4x4 off-the-road vehicle, turned up. And as soon as it turned up, this massive guy got out. I'd never met him before, but I was like, oh shit. Without saying a word, I knew what was happening. And this pilot that I was with, he'd never been on the hunt sub before. He was naive. When adrenaline, when trauma's happening, I never said a word to the pilot. Like, because all I could have said is like, oh shit, oh no, we're getting trapped. You know, like I stayed totally silent, but I knew what was happening. And the only words I spoke to this man was like, I said, and it's what I would do. If I was faced with a big thug, still to this day, someone come to threaten me now, I'd go up to him and I'll smile. And I'll go, you all right? And I said to him, it's a lovely day, isn't it? And he growled at me, he went, "Rrr." And he got on his phone, and I knew what he was doing. He was saying to them, because I told you I sort of spoiled the end, I said we got done for murder. Because of that, there was a police investigation. Do you know what he did? One of the people he rang was a hunt master who was at his grandfather's funeral. He left his grandfather's funeral to come to join the lynch mob that were going to beat us up. How about that? Leaving your grandfather's funeral because I've got them. Anyway, he's trapping us in. He's on the phone. And then the man has to come and to refuel us. We put the fuel in the helicopter. I don't say a single word. I'm kind of fascinated in that. Anyway, the pilot eventually says to me, right, get back in. Oh, good. We're going to try and escape. This man, he's like on his phone. He's smiling. He's smoking a cigarette, and he had this little smile, thinking. And I'm also thinking, shit, my teeth, my ribs, they're in trouble. You know, like, oh no, like it's like, oh shit, we're in trouble. I'm going to go to hospital. This is going to be horrible. But we got back in the gyrocopter, and he turned the engine on, and it had two sets of blades. You got the blade going at the top, and you got the blades at the back. The blades at the back make it go back and forwards. The top blades make it go up and down. So the first engine you engage are the back ones. He puts them on. The Huntsman, he's standing about 30 yards away. He came and stood and put his knee against the gyrocopter. The ground is shaking, for God's sake. These blades, and that's the first. I remember thinking in my head, dead clear, like, oh my God, like you look like a violent, mad person. Now you're doing something extreme. Shit. And the pilot is saying, I never said a word to him, but the pilot is signaling to him, get out the way, get out the way. This is also being filmed by the man who brought the fuel. That film will never see the light of day because the police destroyed it. But anyway.
Wow.
But then the pilot revs the engine and he slightly goes forward to try and nudge him out the way. And then I was watching this man's face. I'm like, I'm transfixed on him because he's the problem, you know? And he went from this. He comes in with this big punch. And I've got a helmet on, and there was a little piece of plastic in front of me, like a little windshield. And I shut my eyes. I've done like loads of martial arts. I did boxing as a kid, and I've done some good jiu-jitsu. But I did what most people are going to do. When you see a big punch coming in, I shut my eyes, even though I've got a helmet on, and I sort of went like that. All I hear is a big thud. I hear boom. And I think he's punched the canopy. But as we're going along, there's a wobble, there's a vibration. And I'm thinking, shit, he's damaged the gyrocopter. And we only went about 10 yards before we stopped. We never really gathered any speed. We just revved the engine. I get out the gyrocopter. I look down the runway and I see him lying on the runway. His feet are towards me and I can see his big belly. He was a big man. He was about 6.5 foot, like massive. And all I can see is his feet, the soles of his feet and his big belly. And I think, shit, he's been knocked out or something. And remember, the lynch mob are on their way. And I'm thinking, oh no, it's going to be violent anyway, but this is not going to be a very good start. Oops, sorry about your mate. He's lying on the ground and like say this exact shape like that. There's a shape, a rectangle, clean as you like boof, boof, boof. It's gone. He'd gone into the blades. I'd done my woof. I'd gone like that and he'd missed my head and into the blades. And I can see he's lying on the ground and there's a big pool of blood, but I can actually see inside his fucking brains, right? And I remember I had two thoughts. One, the first one was like, you fucking dickhead. That's what happens when you punch a dragon, you know, like who punches a helicopter? And it was like I added like a slow hand clap for him. Like I didn't do the slow hand clap, like you absolute moron, you know? And the other one was, and however much I hate your guts, you scumbag, I would never deliberately do that to you. You know, it was like gruesome. And I ended up getting done. The hunt arrived then. All the hunt started to arrive. And I used to wear balaclava, not for to hide my identity, because of the cold. And I remember this huntsman screaming at me in the face. And again, like sometimes the intelligent survivor, I didn't say a word again. I didn't say a word. I didn't say blah, 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 because all he wanted me to do was to say something. He's screaming at me and I was completely silent. Not because I was being brave and silent. Again, your self-defense kicks in. And eventually the police came and the police were quite friendly to begin with, treating it as an accident. And then they put me in the back of the vehicle and then some detectives arrived and then this other policeman got out and he come back in. And I've been arrested hundreds of times. I've been arrested for some crazy things. I've been in 14 prisons altogether, 1-4. We haven't even talked about that.
Yeah. Wow.
And then he comes out with the M word. I'm arresting you for murder. I was like, oh no. And I was held on bail for murder for months. The pilot, he eventually went to trial because, but he got found not guilty.
You mentioned going to prison so many different times, and you've been alluding to the mad stuff that you took part in early on. But what can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, let's go straight to the maddest one.
Now.
You know? Well, I've been
Don't
done
get
for
yourself
it.
in trouble now.
No. But remember, some of it, I'm a storyteller, so some of this might not be true for the sake of the tape. I'm a storyteller. Okay. You know, like, this is for entertainment purposes only, and story is story. Yeah. But no,
that's right.
But I got done for this, and it's really marked my life. My life changed because of this. This was at the start of the interview, 1984. My God, I was mad. And this was normal at the time. When I talk about it now, you're going to go, what? So towards the end of that year, I'm already on bail for breaking into a laboratory, which I got a prison sentence for that. I'm already on bail for that. I'm on a curfew, which means I should stay in my house. But instead, I'm in London. I'm sitting around a table. And I talked about the hunt and the aristocracy. Every year on Boxing Day, we have a thing called Boxing Day here. It's the day after Christmas. It's the day after Christmas Day. And it used to be the Hunt Public Relations Day, like the quintessential English scene with the red coats and the horses and all the people from the town and the village would come out and wave at the Lord. They'd all do this. They're like, yes, Lord, you know. And the BBC would put it on every year. Every year they would have the first news story. Oh, today up and down the Hunt. And there was a man called the Duke of Beaufort. There's a game called badminton. You know that game, badminton?
Oh yeah, badminton. Yeah, I know
You know
that.
that with a shuttlecock.
Yeah.
That's named after that badminton house. There's a man called the Duke of Beaufort, the 10th Duke of Beaufort. He used to look after the Queen's horses. He was the founder of modern day fox hunting. Basically, he was like the Elvis Presley of the hunt world. Yeah, he was the megastar of hunting, and he died in 1984. So me and my friends, we're sitting around and we want to ruin the Boxing Day public relations exercise of the hunt. We're sitting around and we're thinking of crazy ideas. What can we do? We were mad. I was mad and my friends were mad. And if you're mad and you find other mad people, it gets very dangerous because you inspire each other. Like my main partner in crime, we should never have met. We both got done for this, me and Terry. Apart, we were bad enough, but together, God, we were, you know. So he was one of them. He got for this, and then someone said the Duke of Beaufort died this year, and we're like, yeah. And then we come up with this idea. But before I go any further, you know, you talked about how things move. When we got arrested for what I'm about to tell you, all the major animal rights societies, including in America, PETA, supported this. In England, we had the British Union for the Abolition of Vivisection. Very respectable organizations in a way, but they supported us for this crazy thing when we got caught. So we had this idea. The Duke of Beaufort's died. Good girl, Pepe. Look at my beautiful dog.
Oh,
so
Pip.
Let's ruin it. And then we eventually come up with the idea, and it went out of control. Let's desecrate his grave. Let's do something to his grave. Let's steal his cross. Then that turned into let's dig his body up and we'll scatter it round the next day for the hounds to, we'll lay a trail for the hounds to eat. Mental. I can't believe it, you know, like that. I'm still kind of the same person. I've still got some of that in me, but like, whoa. But things were different then. This kind of made sense. And it worked, right? We did it. It's Christmas night, 1984. We went and did it, but we ran out of time. We brought all the stuff with us. It was a freezing cold night. We had to start late because there was still lights on in Badminton at midnight, and we got within a few inches. We got 5.5 foot down, but we had to give up. And I remember walking away thinking, shit, we failed. But then as we're walking in the field, someone said, no, look, we'll still put the press release out because we said we were going to send their head to Princess Anne, who was like a member of the royal family who was pro-hunting. We can still do all the crazy shit, but we'll say the shovel broke. The reason we failed was because the shovel broke. That was a lie. The shovel never did break. We go along, we go to London, we type out the press release, and then this is the difference. This is a bit of a difference of the time. You know, like the work cameras then. But my friend puts a baseball cap on like you've got on. We do a handwritten letter. We take pictures of the bloody cross that we'd taken from the grave upside down that we'd sprayed on it, eat shit and scum. And this is, imagine doing that to Elvis Presley's grave. That would be the equivalent to these hunt people. He was like their god. And we wanted to send a message. But we wanted to pick, this is Barry. I'm not saying Barry was involved, but it's the sort of thing that Barry would come up with that I'd go, no. And Barry didn't come up with it, but we didn't care what the public thought. We should have maybe, but we didn't. But we wanted to just put it on the agenda because it wasn't being talked about. The same as what the suffragettes did when they used to break windows. Of like, they didn't expect people to support them, but you're gonna have to talk about this after we've done this. This is going to be talked about. It was that kind of thing. We knew it was crazy. So but this is how different the times are. We didn't even develop the film. We did a press release, probably with our fingerprints all over it. We drop it off. I park round the corner of the main press association in London. My mate with his baseball cap goes in, puts it on the counter and walks out. Now they'd be able to track you down with the cameras and surveillance and all that. But that got on every front page, literally in the world. If you looked up, and now it's been lost because of archives. But I suggest to you, December the 27th, 1984, it was on the front page of Botswana, of New York, Canada, everywhere, because it was like ghouls attack grave. We didn't realize how much of a taboo we were breaking. There's not many taboos left. Like,
Right.
child sex, I would say, isn't a taboo anymore. Like pedophilia. What is cannibalism, and grave digging is still a taboo. We knew it would be shocking, but we didn't quite realize. When we sat back and looked at the outrage that we caused, we were kind of laughing and pleased, but like we were like, oh shit. Again, it was like, oh shit, what have we done? I can go into why we were caught. How we were caught was a bizarre thing. One of the things that didn't help, I used to make homemade balaclavas. And if you look at the picture, I used to get shirt or jumper sleeves, cut them off and do like holes in the middle. And my face mask was about this much of my face showing. And you can, anyone that knows me, tell it's me. And because we didn't have digital cameras and because we didn't print the film, we just gave the undeveloped film to the press association. And even like people like my dad, it was like, oh Jesus, John, that's you. Like it's very amateur. And that's why I say, when you look back at history, oh my God, look at all these people doing the raids. And we were very, very amateurish. Very. When I got caught, I said they got 6 police forces on for raiding this place when we raided it. One of the things that didn't help, right, was on the video. We took a video that night. My friend Danny, who got done for it, we used to use CB radios. He borrowed the CB radios from work. He was wearing one of the CB radios. And if you zoom into the CB radio, you can see the name of his company on it. It's like, we were amateurs, but well-meaning, well-fueled, dynamic, but crazy, but amateurs. So how we got caught, it's bizarre how we got caught. We had a safe house in London that we didn't even tell other activists about. About 5 people in the world knew about it. But one of the people that knew about it, 6 months before this day, before the grave digging, Terry had gone round to see his mum. He didn't live at home, but he'd gone to see his mum. And his mum said, what have you been doing? He goes, oh, I've been looking for a flat. And he told her he'd found a flat. And he gave her the name of the road. And it's the same name as there's a football club called Tottenham Hotspur. And their ground is in White Hart Lane. And he happened to just say to his mum, hey, I found a flat in White Hart Lane. Casually, like you would do to your mum. But his mum remembered it. And do you know what his mum did? Right? Check out this. So he went to see his mum shortly after the grave digging. And she was horrified, like most people were, like my parents were, like loads of people were.
Yeah.
And he turned up at his mum's and he had mud on his trousers. But that wasn't mud from the grave digging. That was mud from where he'd been taking the dog a walk. But his mum started saying to him, you did it. Because every mum, maybe who's worried about their son or their daughter who's involved in crazy animal rights. And he managed to offend his mum and he said, no, but I don't care about him. He's a monster. Anyway, so what? They dig out live foxes. Who cares about his grave? But he had a few drinks because it was Christmas and he went to sleep in his old bedroom. Do you know what his mum did? While he's asleep, his mum went upstairs. She scraped some mud off his trousers into a plastic box and she went down the police station while he was asleep and said, there you are. That's mud from the Duke of Beaufort's grave. I think my son did it. When they forensically tested that mud, it had nothing to do with the grave digging. But she was also saying, and he's got a flat in White Hart Lane. And that was where they found the cross and everything. About 5 people in the universe knew about White Hart Lane. And when we got arrested, we couldn't possibly get bail. The next year, I was held in custody. I couldn't get bail. But me and Terry were like, how did they find the safe house? How did the police do it? And his mum used to come and see him in prison to visit. She never said, by the way, it was me that grassed you up. I remember around 4 months later, around Easter time, we got the evidence. And I remember I was sitting on the bed and I'm going through the evidence. And I said, Terry, what time did you get arrested? He said, I think it was about 4 o'clock. I go, your mum is in the police station at 20 minutes to 4. And he's like, no, that's the only time. That's how we got caught. But what about, but still to this day, say like if I wanted to come to America to see you, imagine getting through the customs and they said, hello, Mr. Curtin, have you ever got a criminal record? And I'll be like, yeah, a little bit of a one. Could you give details? No. Imagine checking up, right? They've got conspiracy to burgle. I've been done for raiding a number of laboratories. I've been done for blackmail. I've been done for, I said about Mike Hill when we smashed the guy's house up, violent disorder. But the police have heard it all. They've heard everything under the sun. But on my bloody criminal record, there's conspiracy to disinter human remains, you know? And the police or anyone starts panicking because it sounds like voodoo.
Yeah.
But that has followed me through life. I don't normally talk about it because it's like a crazy thing. But you know what? Like, there's a group called the Style Council. They were famous back in the 80s. The Jam. Have you heard the group The Jam? Paul Weller, very famous musician. They did a benefit for us.
Oh, really?
They did a benefit gig because it was seen as an attack on hunting. It was seen as an attack on aristocracy. It was seen as like, the peasants revolting. There was kind of even a bit of a sense of humor to it. Years later, there was a similar grave digging done in respect to another anti-vivisection campaign. I remember being in court at the High Court again. I'm always in that High Court in London. I was there for another case, and my barrister came and he showed me the newspaper for that day, and it said about the grave desecration. And it maybe, it shows you how you change. I was actually devastated. I was like, I wasn't happy. And they'd done it. They desecrated someone's mother-in-law to get at them. And I was actually disgusted. And other animal rights people were saying to me, fucking hell, John, you know what I mean? What right have you got? But I actually wasn't impressed, actually. I understood why we did it. But and you're not meant to slag off anyone's direct action. But I did publicly go on record saying that I didn't, it left a bad taste in my mouth. So that's kind of strange, isn't it? And I really, from anyone doing this, I'm fucking not encouraging it to do it. I'm not. It's like, it was a mad thing we did back then. It won't do the cause of animal rights any good. If you think it's funny to go and do it again, don't do it because I did it. We can laugh and joke about it, but we are now getting public awareness. I did it then. It was an extreme thing because no one was talking about hunting. So please don't go and do a copycat thing. I'm serious.
Don't do that.
And that's a serious thing from the bottom of my heart,
Yeah. Well, you've had just like an amazing life.
Crazy.
Yeah, it is a crazy story. Yeah. Well, you've had just like just an amazing, like, free-spirited kind of like, do it your way kind of life that I really appreciate that you have.
I'm an old punk. I had punk and reggae. That was my education. I've got no idea now. Like Camp Beagle, we hardly get any young teenagers there. We've got a 9-year-old. Maybe things are changing again. I think they're a bit lost. The teenage and the young people, they've got nothing. I had punk and reggae. Have you heard of a band called The Specials? The Specials,
no.
Two-Tones. I hate it when they're forgotten. Best band ever. They're from Coventry. I'm from an Irish background. I was born in Coventry, but my family are for Irish immigrants. And I was brought up on punk and reggae, and the Irish and the Jamaicans, we were the immigrants. So I was lucky to have like punk and reggae, and I that's still within me now. I'm still that same punk to this day. I'm a bald old man, but I've still got some of that fire in my belly now.
You and me both. You and me both.
And I've still got that fuck the system,
Yeah.
you know?
You definitely do. Well, I always ask this to people that I bring on my podcast, like, what are like some books you think like people should read, but also like, so you've mentioned this band, The Specials. So like, what's some music like I should look into?
The Specials, but they were the best live band ever. I'll tell you about The Specials. So in America, at the minute, you've got this thing about Donald Trump and immigrants. Where I was born, Coventry was a place of factories and car factories. That place couldn't have existed without immigrants. It was Irish, Indians, and Jamaicans, right? And there was a lot of racism around at that time. Now the racists they're going to a different banner. They've hidden themselves away very cleverly. They're not so. Then it used to be the skinhead, and it used to be the firebombing the houses. Now they're a lot more subtle. But we had a lot of that racist violence in Coventry, and the Specials were like two-tone, and it was really good. You had to decide which side you were on, and I know which side I was on. So the Specials were like, it was a real dynamic thing to bring black and white kids together. You know, every punk gig you'd ever go to back then, half the music would be reggae. So get into roots reggae, dub, Rasta, you know, like you don't have to listen to the highly selected bit, but if you want, but pay respect to it, you know. But the message within Bob Marley, I could listen to Bob Marley on a loop. You don't need to listen to anyone else. Listen to Bob Marley on a loop. But music, if I was to give you a musical choice, no, I can't think.
Well,
books to read. Let me think. Books.
Yeah.
Books. What in what respect? It's too much of a vague question.
Yeah, anything. So usually I'm asking
check out
people
Buddha.
like,
check out the history of Buddha. Check out
history of Buddha. Okay.
An extraordinary book called The Bloodless Revolution. That's a very good book. That's about the history of vegetarianism. Bloodless Revolution.
Oh, okay. Bloodless Revolution.
The Dreaded Comparison. That's a great book, and that doesn't do the round. That's about the links between slavery and animal abuse. Eternal Treblinka. That's a great book. That's taboo, because you can't bring comparisons about the Holocaust. You put me on the spot there. I can't think. You know, like I'm ranting. I can't.
Well, no, that was
I'll
great.
have to think about that in a minute.
Yeah, because I hadn't heard of Bloodless Revolution or the Dreaded Comparison, and I will just second you on Bob Marley because because with Bob Marley, like I've often said, if there was like someone that I could time travel to go back and see live, it would probably be Bob Marley. It's like there's no one who is like so owned a genre of music, and I'm sure that I'm just ignorant and I don't know tons of just wonderful reggae artists, but when you go into a music shop, you'll see the reggae section. Half of what you see is going to be Bob Marley, and you just don't have that with any other genre of music.
And it's all about fuck the system, and they call it Babylon. Now, with a lot of rap music, it all went down the pan, became all this gangster shit. Bob Marley would turn in his grave at a lot of that gangster shit. He'd be embarrassed about it, you know. This is about people uniting and fuck the system. In their case, they'd say burn down Babylon. So get yourself into some old dub reggae like Dennis Bavell, Augustus Pablo, Pioneers. Look at her, look. Pepe, she just got the bin out. Back in the bin. Excuse me, madam. Aha.
Well, John, thank you so much for everything you're doing for the animals. Thank you for standing up for the beagles.
But again, that
so
question, I thank people all the time. I thank people for sharing posts, and we've got to be careful about that. I don't, but I don't want to be rude, Jeremy. I don't need thanking. I don't need to thank Jill. And when you said Bob Marley, I had a nice thought about Jill. She's forever frozen in my mind as young and smiling. And Bob died young, but you got some beautiful pictures of him smiling. And the good, they do die young. But we thank each other for doing activist stuff. It's ridiculous. I don't need thanking. I answer to myself.
True.
and I don't wish to be rude to. I know where you're coming from.
Yeah, no,
But
I don't take offense
start
to it.
using different language of like,
Yeah, you
John,
may
I
be right.
acknowledge that you're in it. You're one of us, rather than thanking each other.
Well, tell me this, John. Like, so I think a lot of my viewers are going to be, you know,
Can I
it's small.
interrupt? Can I interrupt? Look at
Yeah,
my
go
dog
ahead.
being naughty. She's got. I love
Yeah,
naughty.
yeah.
Let me interrupt. Look at Pepe. Pepe, what are you doing? She's got her head in the bin because she's getting excited. So we're going to wrap this up soon because she needs to go for a walk, and I need to eat my roast dinner. You bastard.
Yeah. I know. My bad, John. Yeah. Well, let me help you just a second though. So I think a lot of my viewers are going to be from outside of the UK. I know if you're in the UK, you could sign that petition. But if you're outside of the UK, is there anything that people could do to support Camp Beagle?
Yes. If you're in America, this is an American-based company. This place makes people cry their eyes out. 2,000 dogs. You got if you're US people, this is an American company. It's hardly ever been touched, man. Everyone's too scared of it. Get on the case of Scott Marshall. There's not a single photograph of that man. I'm told that in America he's protected by federal agencies or something, and you can't print his picture. If anyone out there's got a picture of Scott Marshall that they're too scared to publish, give it to me. I'll publish it tomorrow. We can't find a picture. How can you be a man involved in global multinational business and there not even be a single photograph of you? If anyone has got a picture of Scott Marshall, please send it to me and I'll plaster it on the front. Don't tell me about arresting me for this ain't the fucking 53rd American state. I'll print it now. I want a picture of Scott Marshall. He needs shaming. So get on the case in America. You've got Ridgelands Farms on the go. Kick it, you know what I mean? Get rid of it. It's about to go. You got Envigo, be inspired by that. So do stuff on your own doorstep is the answer. So and really, the Marshall Empire, they've got places in France. They got imprisoned in Italy. They got kicked out of Italy. They came to here because they said Italy was too restrictive, mean that the manager was sent to prison. They're a disgusting organisation. You're disgusting, Scott Marshall, and we're coming for you, Mew. And I don't mean that in a violent way. We're fucking coming for you because we're angry, you monster, what you've done. And we're gonna hurt you, Scott Marshall. No, we're gonna hurt you by making your finance, by attacking your money. We're gonna take your money away from you. All your millions of pounds that you dealt with. Your empire is crumbling. And the only way you ever built it was keeping people quiet and doing it in secret. Them days are over, you monsters.
Yeah, you can't keep John Curtin quiet. That I know. that is you cannot do that. Well, John, I will thank you for coming on my podcast.
And I'll reiterate
again,
Scott Marshall, we're coming for you. And I don't mean that in terrorism. Oh, please help me. The people are coming for you because we've had it up to here with your corruption and your lies. All you care about is healthy profits, a healthy planet. We want a healthy population. We want to keep the population healthy with our pharmaceuticals and our chemicals. No, you don't. You've only ever wanted healthy profit, but your days are over. The stupid days in America where you could put people on telly in the 1950s with as long as they had a suit and a tie on, our new products are safe because they've been safety tested. No one believes. A good thing about all this modern day age and this, we've all got access. We can all do our own research. People don't trust people in suits and ties anymore. People don't trust the government anymore. And we don't trust you, Scott Marshall. And we're coming for you with your secrets.
John, you're the fucking best. You are the best.
I'm a knobhead. John, the
yeah,
knobhead.
You are a fucking knobhead. You really
You've got me at my best. You've got me at I'm most honest. I don't normally talk about the grave digging. Please don't hold that against me. I don't want to be known as the fucking grave digger. It happened 40 years ago. But
no.
And please, people, don't take offense in this country when I've said we don't get any support from animal rights groups. We don't. That's true. We get lots of support from animal rights people. This is me at my rawest. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. But I'm exhausted. So you've got the full rant of John Curtin and everything I said I mean from the bottom of my heart. So leave it in, warts and all.
Sounds good. That's beautiful. Yeah. It'll be a messy podcast because that's just how Camp Beagle operates. And that's why I love it. It's raw, it's real. And I'm not going to clean it up.
Yeah,
Like,
we
it's
want to
just gonna
up our
be what
game
it
now
is.
because the world's watching us. So I like,
Yeah.
but do you think we should up? I think if we up our game too much, we might lose the real spirit of Camp Beagle. Like at the minute, you got fucking dog
Exactly.
barking. Like that's all you can probably hear. But we are by the side of the road. We've roughed it, and take inspiration from. We want. I know there's a level. I'm broken. I'm all right, even if I'm not all right. I say now I use the language. I'm broken, and like Barry did some sacrifice, and it isn't my sacrifice. I'm just the one on the camera. You saw Emma, and getting animal liberation means sometimes stepping out your comfort zone and making a sacrifice. But let's not get into the crucifixion complex either, where you have to suffer for the animals unnecessarily. I'm looking forward to getting the hell out of here and going with my dog to the mountains and the sea and getting back to happiness. But I ain't leaving until this place is shut, and it's not an empty slogan.